Quick shout out to Lowney Sports. I've known Tim personally, and he's been a longtime supporter of youth and high school athletes. He's also been an attorney for over 25 years, and he's both an NFL and NIL agent, so he knows the space. Many think NIL is expensive, unnecessary, or that it only matters once you have an offer. But there's actually a lot to know before the scholarships and deals start coming. To contact him for a free NIL consultation, call 617-733-8313 or visit lowneysports.com. Today's podcast, elite traits. So talking all things quarterback. Elite traits can be physical, mental, emotional, doesn't matter. We're going to do a snake draft, meaning whoever picks first is going to get the last pick in the second round, and we're going to go through one by one, just talking about something that we want to see in our quarterback. So I think to start, how do we want to decide who goes first? Should I just pick a name out of a hat?
You're the boss.
I think Jimmy should go first.
Yeah, youngest person.
I'm good with
in the
that.
podcast.
Let's go. Okay,
Let the young buck jump in there.
We'll go Jimmy. Stevie can bat second. Mikey can bat third. Cam will bat cleanup, and I'll go back to back in the 5-6 slot here.
Wow, it's a tough slot.
All right, take it away, Jimbo.
I get the fourth.
All right. I'll go with a physical trait here. Elite mover. I think we talk about this a lot. And I'm not just saying like you've got to be the most athletic guy, right? That's running a 4.5 or I can do anything. But I'm talking about like managing the pocket, right? Manipulating defenders, whether it's like a little bit of like a short twitch or a jab, right? You get a high rush, you got to be able to conflict climb, navigate the pocket, whether it's off a first or second rush, and then change pace, right? There's differences. We talk all the time in like a base or subtle movement. We're kind of might be working from 1 to 2, right? Just trying to find an alley to shoot it through. Or we get a free rusher, something like that, right? We got to get a little bit more evasive, change gears. And I think it comes into like there's other pieces, right? Like, can I make throws from a compromised position, right? You hear all the time NFL draft guys are talking about arm slots, things like that, right? Or if my feet aren't in the right spot, right, or I'm not in the perfect situation, can I still shoot it out there and be accurate, whether it's on the move or off platform? And then obviously, like, it comes down to it, extending plays, right? When I get outside the pocket, I've got to be able to make guys miss inside and out, and then maintain the ability to still be a passer, right? Being able to relax and being able to get to anywhere on the field at any time.
A great number one overall pick. I think just to quickly hit on that too is like the best play that I can run as an offensive coordinator, that a coach can run, is a play that's an extension by the quarterback, right? The ability to scramble and keep your eyes downfield and make plays for the team when, sometimes the play that's called isn't working, right? Allowing yourself the flexibility of still being able to create a big play with your feet, with your eyes, all that stuff. So I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I think Tom Brady comes to mind for me. Like not known as the most athletic quarterback, but he knew like when he was getting, only 3 or 4 guys rushing, that he was going to need to buy a little bit more time. And he was really good at like subtly manipulating the pocket to find those spaces and be able to create space to extend the play and make those throws. When you were talking about that, James, that popped into my head.
Don't got to be fast. Got to be able to switch gears.
Not all of us can switch gears like that, but we can try.
Stevie, on the clock, pick 2.
Yeah, so I think, like Jimmy said, the physical traits of a quarterback, of an elite quarterback, are obviously very important. But I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to go with leadership. Now, with leadership, obviously, there's many different avenues that you can get into when talking about leadership, especially in the quarterback position. And I think most people right away, they think of on-field leadership, command in the huddle, leading the boys, 2-minute drills, things of that nature. But I think leadership kind of dives into much more than that. And we talk about it all the time, about being a quarterback and really embodying the position as a whole. And if you really want to embody the position as a whole, I think that leadership is one or two most important things you have to have as a quarterback. and I've touched on it before in the previous episode of, getting on people, and you got to get on people. But it's a lot more than that. And there's a way to do things to get the most out of your teammates without crossing that line and coming off as, an asshole, for a lack of a better term. There's a right way to do things. There's a wrong way to do things. And with leadership, like, I'd love to take like a whole episode and just really dive into this. But I do think that when we're talking most important characteristics of a quarterback as a whole, that's got to be up there. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I think that the part you brought up, right, the emotional response, right, like the wide receiver, right, he runs a great route and everything, he gets open, he drops the ball, so what, right? We can't go on him and get on him about that, right? Because then we're losing him. What example is that showing him for us, right? We go out there, I don't want a guy hollering at me and letting me hear it after I make a bad read or throw a pick, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to do our job. It's all right, things happen, you know what I mean? Next play, just kind of keep moving on.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I talk about it with the guys I coach all the time. Like, you should be having some sort of feedback on every single play, whether it's holding yourself accountable, holding someone else accountable, but there's a way to do it in order to get the best out of yourself and the people around you. For example, like you said, picking up a receiver, if a ball gets dropped or whatever the case may be, don't only decide to talk to your receiver when things are going bad. You have to pick them up all the time. Let them know, hey, that's a good route, good play, and if there is a drop ball, hey, great route, we'll get the next one, get back and let's go get another one. But and kind of going away from, the quarterback stuff, I think, I can't remember the coach. We all played for the same coaches in college. Who was it that talked about the amount of high school football players that go on to play college football?
Wayne used to talk about a lot. He would bring up percentages.
Yeah.
Andy
So
Noon.
Moyen talked. Yeah. Yeah.
That
So
was
they
what I
talked
was
about that a
thinking.
lot, and it was very eye-opening. Like, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like 1% of high school football players go on to play college football, right? Now take that number and apply it to how many of those kids how many of the players make it to the NFL. So you got to think about, like, when it comes to football, it's a lot more than just playing, right? Because you're taking a lot of those lessons and things you learn and characteristics that you embody and gain along the way. And now you're applying that to real life. So things like leadership, like, you can take that and you can apply it for the rest of your life in every single thing you do. Every day, I feel like I'm looking back and relating at some point of my day to something I learned or picked up through football. So, learning the intricacies of being a good leader and recognizing good leadership when you see it and when you're around it, compared to bad leadership when you see it and you're around it. I just think there's so many different avenues, you can go with leadership. But it starts with the quarterback in the football field.
Leadership, I think, could have easily been the first pick. Kids think I'm joking all the time, right? Some of my favorite traits have nothing to do with talent, right? Requires zero talent. Things that we can absolutely control, right? If we control the controllables and we do our job with things like leadership, right? And I'm not going to mention any other traits because I don't know what people are about to pick here, but control that type of stuff, right? And control your environment, be the leader that people want to follow. Pick 3, Big Mike.
All right. a lot of different ways that I want to go here, but I think I'm just trying to think like elite traits, elite guys that we've worked with, and just studying the game over the past decade. I think poise is like a really, really important trait that you need to have. We see it all the time, guys that come into a training session or in a camp kind of type environment and look really good in shorts and a t-shirt, like lights out. Like, you think, all right, this kid's going to the NFL. Like, he's unbelievable. And then the lights turn on and, the moment becomes too much for them. And the pressure gets to them, or they start to struggle a little bit, and then things, heat up for them and they're not able to process on the field what's going on, right? And things get cloudy. And I think from there, it's really hard to have success. So I think poise is like something that's not talked about a ton, and it's not something you can necessarily work on per se, right? More of an intangible that you kind of have it or you don't. I think through preparation can lead to more confidence, which then can lead to more poise. But it's something that like the moment can't be too big for you, right? And I know I'm stealing a bunch of things, but like competitive greatness, right? Like all those things, if you're not poised, you can't do that. And if you're not poised, it's hard to be accurate. And that's another physical trait, right? Like, so I think that's something that's really important. And if you look at like the guys that are doing it at a super high level in the NFL, they're the best in the most important moments, right? When the chips are down, when everything's on the line, they're able to process and execute at a high level because they're poised, right? Because they're calm, because their heart rate is settled, right? They're not panicking, they're not overreacting because they're prepared for this situation, but they can also handle it, right? Like some guys, the pressure is just too much for them, or the processing is just too much for them. But if you're poised and you can handle that, then it really helps you have success at a high level.
Another good point to bring up there is when you're talking about never let the moment get too big, and we're talking about competitive greatness and everything. It's like it all comes down to that intense preparation and the practice. Like I love the saying that like you practice all week and it should be harder than the game. You know what I mean? Because you've seen it all week, right? You're going against the scout defense, right? They're replicating the look, right? There should be no surprise when you go out there on Friday, Saturday night, Sunday night, whatever it is, because you should have done it a million times in practice. And right, that's also about, right? We got to create a practice environment, a training environment that's game-like scenarios, right? You know what I mean? We got to be testing the limits, and we're doing everything full speed and really bringing it, right? So that when we go out there and it's game time, right? It's just second nature. It's just like our Wednesday full pad period, whatever it is.
Yeah, I do think there are things like I'm kind of thinking about what I just said, and there are ways to improve it, but I do think like it's an innate trait that some guys just carry with them. And some guys are better in those environments and are able to handle the multi-level of complexity that gets thrown at you within each play. And I just think it's a big part of it.
I think you can even like branch off of that and you put poise at the top, and then everything that kind of helps you get to that point. And you could talk about a million things. I mean, preparation, I'm pretty sure you touched on that. Confident preparation. There's so many different things that can get you to that point. And if you don't have it, you can definitely get there. You just got to be willing to put in the work, which seems to be a common theme with everything we've been talking about.
I think that's interesting too, because like you said, and I initially like think the same thing. Like some people just kind of have it, but I think that it is like a certain level of it, right? Because I do think through experience, a lot of that poise can be built or can kind of be shown in a different light. But I think that's a great pick, and I do, like Stevie said, like I think it's an umbrella pick of a lot of things that can, kind of encompass poise, and that's kind of what makes it so important for us. Cam. Not sure we have Cam still, so I'm gonna skip over Cam for now. I'm gonna take the next one. Give Cam a little time to see if we can get that audio back. Like Mike said, a couple different ways you can go with this. There's like 4 that I'd like to pick. I think I'm gonna start with coachability. Right? Are you coachable? And I think that it's a trait in itself to be able to like listen. It's a trait in itself to be able to execute. And I think that kind of both fall under that ability of being coachable. There's a lot of information that constantly gets fed to you as a quarterback. It's the toughest position, in my opinion, in any sport. And the things that go into preparation, right? The things that go into the game, the things that are during the game, before the snap, post snap, adjustments at halftime, adjustments in between series, right? There's so many things and there's so much information that we can consume. If you are a good consumer of that information in that coaching, I think you stand above the pack, right? I think that the ability to make sure you're focused and you're listening during practice, during install, right? And never making that same mistake twice. That's one of the most unique traits, but I also think one of the most common traits among some of the top players of the position. They hear the information, they're students of the game, right? They almost act as if they're a coach on the field, and that's kind of falls under that leadership category, but I also think it's its own in terms of it's a different trait because kids can be leaders all day, but can you retain information? Are you listening when I'm speaking? I know you're hearing me. Are you listening when I'm speaking, right? Are you able to understand that what we do right now is going to affect how we play on Saturday or Friday night or Sunday? And it's a trait that kind of came to me late when I was thinking about this exercise, but the more and more I think about it, like, that's one of the top things I need in my guy. Like, you need to be able to listen, you need to be able to execute, you need to be able to communicate information that I want you to communicate as a coach. And I think if you can do that, you put yourself in a phenomenal position to be a leader, right? But to also have success in game. And
let me
uh,
ask you a question
go
now.
for it.
Actually, let me ask the group. I think this is something that comes up a lot, and it's something that I guarantee every quarterback listening or that we coach, it's happened to them at least once. How do you approach a situation where you're learning something one way all off season, whether it's with us or whoever, and it becomes muscle memory, it becomes a habit. You get to camp, and your OC or your quarterback coach or even your head coach tells you they want it done a different way. How do you approach that as a quarterback? What's the best way to handle that situation?
Mike, you want to take this?
No, I think it's tough. I think it depends on what is the situation. Like what is he asking you to do, and is it something physical that you've logged tens of thousands of reps this offseason doing a different way, and then you trying to adjust and make that change at the beginning of the season is going to do more harm than good? Is it something mental, the way that you're looking at a read or processing, that can be an easier fix? I think at the end of the day, perspective's important. Like, even I think, like, there's so many different ways to teach throwing a football, and I study all the other quarterback trainers, and like, there are a lot of people that do it different than I do, but I think I can still learn something from all of them. So understand that just because someone that you really trust and you believe in is telling you to do something one way, and then maybe a new coach that comes in is telling you to do it a different way, at the end of the day, like, your coach decides whether you're playing or not. So if you're going to do something that's completely going against what he's saying, it's going to be hard for you to get on the field. So I think the coach trumps everyone in that situation, but you have to, like I said, it depends on the specific scenario. I think if it's something physical, you work on it when he's there, and you try to meet in the middle as much as you can. But then when the game is going and the bullets are flying, you're going to do what you've prepared all off season doing. And hopefully for you, you're with the right coaches doing the right thing. That's going to be a benefit for you, and you're going to have success. And then in return, right, your coach will allow you to do that. But I think it's tough. It depends on the scenario, but you're going to get coaches that you don't agree with. You have to be able to work with them. If you can't work with them and you can't show them that you value them and their opinion and what they're saying, you're never going to have success. You have to develop a relationship, and you have to work together, as hard as it may be, because you're right, Stez, that stuff comes up all the time, and how you handle it is so important.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm glad you asked that, because Stevie, I think that might actually be a top question that does get asked. And luckily it doesn't happen in a lot of scenarios, but it does come up. And what I would say is, I have trust in most coaches at this day and age to be player before ego, right? And trying to put your kid in the best situation. And I know that you as a coach, right, you would do the same thing. Ultimately, if I'm coaching, is it efficient? Is it the most comfortable way for him to do something? And is it helping us execute our offense? If it checks those 3 boxes, then boom. Okay, but I do understand the scenario does arise, right? And I think Mike answered it well. Like, he makes the call, right? And if you're not doing it his way, and if that's going to be a deal breaker, then we're just going to have to figure out a way, right? Be adaptable.
Yeah, and I think too, not to
might be
answer
another
my
trait.
own. Yeah, exactly. But not to like try to answer my own question, but just the wheels turn and listening to you guys talk about it. There's a time and a place to have that conversation with your coach too. If you're getting coached up during a team period, and you do something one way, whether it's mechanically or a read or whatever the case may be, and he tells you to do it a different way, obviously he's your coach, you're going to do that way, right? But I think that there is a way to have that conversation, and then there's a time and a place, and there's a mature way to handle it. And maybe it's after practice or after a game or in the film room. Doesn't have to be in front of the team or in front of the quarterback room, but maybe it could be a one-on-one conversation, and just have a mature conversation and pick your coach's brain. Hey, okay, I understand that you want me to do a different way. Why? What's the reasoning? And you don't have to be an a-hole about it. You just ask the question. What's the reason behind that? And then maybe say, okay, I'm obviously going to do it the way you want to. You're the coach, but this is why I was doing it the other way. And be able to have an open dialogue with your coach, because at the end of the day, that's going to build your relationship, whether it's the OC, the quarterback coach, the head coach, and build trust and communication. And all those things are super important between a quarterback and their coach. So there is a way to do it. But you gotta be mature about it. And that's another trait that, you could include in this conversation. But I don't mean to sidetrack the what we're doing here, but that just came to mind when we talked about coachability.
No, I think that's great. And I think that hopefully that's just part of the podcast, right? That's kind of how I want it to work. And I think how Mike and we all want it to work is when we think of something, we got to talk about it, because whatever we're thinking about is probably more important, right? And we kind of have to address it in the moment. All right. Well, anyone got anything on that coachability, or you want to move on? All right.
You're up again.
Yeah, my turn on the swing back here. So I'm gonna go. I was gonna go one of each, but I talk about it too much to not mention it, and I hope I'm not stealing from anyone else. But it ties off of leadership, but conviction, man. Like, you have to have this relentless belief in yourself as a player, right, and the leader, to be able to be successful at the position. Understanding what it takes to be great, and then doing everything you can to meet those needs, right? That level of preparation and that level of confidence is going to help you compete at a higher level. If you believe that you can do something, and you truly believe that you can do something, it's going to help you be successful. I have no doubt of that, right? And I want the kid, I'd rather have the kid who thinks that they're better than they are, right, than just can't seem to find enough belief in themselves to perform, right? You have to have that guy, because people feed off of that guy. People feed off of that type of energy, right? It's infectious. Just like we talk about things that are bad traits, right? It takes one guy to sink a ship, but it takes dozens to keep it afloat. You have to be able to lead, right, all 11. You have to be able to lead a whole team, a whole roster. And if you don't believe in yourself, it's going to be very hard to do that. And we did talk about with like Tom Brady, right, being down 28-3, and still, I have to believe that Tom Brady still fully believed that they could win that game. It's the only way they could have done it, right? Along with his teammates, and you guys have all seen the clips, and I know Stez will talk about the Edelman stuff and how awesome that was, but he truly believed he could win that game. If it was me in high school, man, I'd have a tough time not sitting here and lying to you, saying that I thought I could win that game at halftime or deep in the third quarter, whatever it was. And I think with maturity, it kind of comes, but it's a special trait, right? And that's a special level of conviction. And I think if you have that, your success is going to come in time. This episode is brought to you by Cantiani Insurance Agency, insurance professionals specializing in home, auto, flood, and investment properties. They are the most referred insurance agency in Massachusetts. If you want coverage you can trust, call 508-791-2088 or visit cantianiagency.com. We also welcome a new sponsor, Wizard Computer Services, providing outsourced IT and cybersecurity since 1997. Call 781-341-2222 or visit www.wizardcpu.com for more information. New England's cybersecurity experts.
Oh,
Love it. That's a good one too, because I feel like kids, I don't know, like whether it's a high school coach or an evaluator, like looking at a kid and say they're looking at him over a long period of time, they've seen him for a couple of years, like if they're looking at a kid and they don't believe in him, but that kid continues to believe in himself and continue to work and continue to grow, like they're eventually going to make believers, whether it's out of their OC, their quarterback coach, or someone evaluating them. Like if they don't let other negativity or others get them down, and they truly, even if they're not great yet or they're not having success yet, but they believe in themselves, like to that point where they can just keep working and keep getting after it to the point where they develop those skills and get to that level. Like, we've seen it before. There's kids that have come in and, I look at them and I'm like, I don't know if this is, like, in my head thinking, I don't know if this is the position for them. But they just kept showing up and they kept have confidence. And we have stories of kids that have done that and gotten Division I offers. And I could have sworn, if I told you that after the first day I saw him throw, if you told me he was going to be a Division I kid, I would have said no way. Right. But he just never quit. And we have that happen all the time. So I think that's a really good one.
I think that's a trait
Go ahead,
too. I think that's a trait too, where if you have enough self-conviction in that's gonna affect everyone around you without even having to really do anything. You know what I mean? If you believe in yourself, and it goes with leadership and everything else we talked about. They all tie in, but if you are convinced enough that you're that guy and that you're gonna do what you plan on doing, then it's gonna naturally affect everybody around you.
We see it all the time, and it's been talked about too. But man, like, even if you aren't as good as you think you are yet, but if you're the kid who's out there early, like trying to lead people and trying to get people in the right spot, and like you can tell this kid just oozes confidence, whether his skill meets it, the coach is gonna be like, man, I like that guy. Like, he might not have it yet, but like, I'm gonna trust that guy one day, right? I like what he's about, and I think that it's a strong trait. I think it could have been my first pick. It's something that I'll talk about. I've talked about before, and I'll talk about again. But seeing that, and then like you said, like if you're not playing or in training, like we see guys all the time, we're not sure of. They end up, if they're relentless, right? If they're relentless and they continue to work, they tend to make it happen. And it's the same thing. If you're a backup, right, but you believe that you should be the starter, just keep training that way. Keep performing at a high level. Those reps will increase, and all of a sudden, right, it's a battle, right? Or you're one play away, but you have to have that belief at all times. So I think on the way back now, it goes back to Mike.
Yep.
All right,
man,
Mikey.
that whole conversation kind of flipped me another way, but I think a physical trait that I recognize in the difference of the really elite guys that we've worked with over the years is you have to be a passer, not a thrower. And again, this is kind of an overarching one because it's hard to pick one single trait, but you have to be able to have control of the football when you throw. And what I mean by that is you'll go see kids throw all the time, and kids have really strong arms that flash and pop, and the way that the ball comes off their hand, like, coaches pay attention to that. And I think there is something to that, right? Like, arm speed and arm strength and being able to drive the ball, super important. But a trait that stands out with every single NFL guy that we've ever worked with over other guys that we've worked with equally as strong of arms is their ability to layer the football, right? Their ability to throw with touch, their ability to, because they're able to do that, anticipate, right? They're able to lay it over a backer, anticipate a guy coming out of his break in the dig and dropping it right in that window, right? Or the ability to put the football anywhere on the field. Right? I think there's a big difference between being able to throw the ball and being an elite passer. And I think that's something that guys miss sometimes is they just want to, coach, how can I throw the ball farther? Coach, how can I throw the ball harder? Important questions, but more important is like, can I throw the ball on a drive ball, but can I also layer it and can I throw it with touch? So that's something that definitely sticks out to me, and it allows you to anticipate. It allows you to have confidence. It allows you to do all those other traits that we're talking about, because when you get out there, I can put this ball at any speed, with any tempo, at any, type of arc to get it to my playmaker. And I think at the end of the day, that's our job, right? To distribute the football to our guys in space. How are you going to do that? You have to be able to control the ball and throw with, different speeds on it.
Yeah, and I think that you see it when you make the jump level to level. Those windows get a lot tighter, right? They'll go from, like, the guys are running wide open in high school, right? Maybe there's a guy trailing them in college or whatever. But as you keep going, right, those things get smaller and smaller, and you've got to be able to anticipate. You got to throw things early, and you got to have that conviction, that confidence in yourself as a passer. because it takes a little bit of moxie sometimes to throw into those tight windows. You know what I mean? Because you can get into trouble, right? If you're throwing the ball too late, right? Whether it is across the middle of the field or into a zone window, things like that. You got to really trust your eyes and trust what you're seeing and what you're seeing on tape, and then go out there and do it, right? And like you're talking about, layering it over defenders or being able to throw inside guys, but when you're reading body languages, things like that.
And just throwing a catchable ball. Like guy's not ripping it on a shallow, throwing 90 miles an hour at his face. Like being able to throw a catchable ball. If you have control of the ball with everything you're doing, like you're able to do that.
You take something as simple as the weather. I know I talk about him all the time, but Brady was in the booth the other day on a Sunday, and he was talking about how to control the ball in the wind and the point of the ball coming out of your hand, and how if the point of that football is on an upwards trajectory, throwing it into the wind's going to take it, and you don't know what's going to happen. But if you have that ball on a little bit of a downward plane, it's going to cut through the wind, and you'll be able to be more accurate. Little things like that. I mean, it's just so important. It's such a good point, Mike.
One of the things that I talk about the most when in a youth session, it's like we'll have receivers, and I'll be like, why'd you hesitate? And the kid will be like, well, he didn't turn around yet. Like he wasn't looking at me. He wasn't going to catch the ball. I'm like, grab your notebook, pal. Like we're going to have a chat, because listen, as you get older and these windows get smaller, like as soon as he starts to level down and get into his break, we got to release the football, right? It's not going to be pat, wait for, Johnny running 40 yards butt naked downfield to make this throw. We have to be able to throw with anticipation. We have to throw within windows, right? And I think that that's something that we hit on at a younger level, right? Because we have those younger age groups, but it's important, right? And it's evident, right? Kids, it's a learned trait. Kids need to learn how to throw with anticipation, and then with touch, obviously, is a whole nother conversation here too.
Hey, how about this? The best way to work on anticipation is to get with your receivers that you're going to be playing with and train with them the entire offseason. Develop an on-field relationship. Know the timing of your receiver. Every single guy runs a little bit different, whether it's speed, whether it's the distance of a route, how quickly they break, where they hit their spots at. The best way to do that is to get your receivers and get to work. Don't wait until training camp to try to develop a on-field relationship with your receivers, because you're too late. Other guys are working, and I see it in the M2 sessions. The quarterbacks who show up with their receivers, they get into August and they're already ready to go. They're not working on timing. They're not working on anticipation, because they know where they're going to be. Now they're diving into the playbook and they're watching film instead of working on timing. It's just little things like that. Get the advantage. Take every advantage you can get. Don't wait.
Yeah, and I know like college coaches are always looking for accuracy, right? Like, is this guy a 70% passer? Like, is he hitting that mark in high school? I know the Oregon coach talked about that recently. Like when they're recruiting guys, like a guy has to complete 75 or 70% of his passes at that high school level for them to, be a recruitable quarterback for Oregon. How do you do that? I think being able to, if you're just throwing the ball 100% as hard as you can on every rep, I think there's going to be a lot of sprayed throws and you're not going to have a ton of control. How do you do that? You be a passer of the football. You'd be able to change speeds, change tempos. So that's just another piece of it that I thought of.
That's an interesting thing about Oregon. I didn't know that, because I was going to say, I think that one of the biggest places people miss, whether it be recruiting or in the NFL, is that thrower versus passer, right? You see the big arm and the 6'5", 230-pound frame, and man, they can throw the ball 80 yards, and yeah, but can they complete anything underneath, right? And that's I think super important. So that's cool that Oregon does that. I think that that's kind of like a new way of recruiting a little bit, is to like really intensify and put a huge emphasis on being able to be accurate with the football.
And I think
carrying that right now, I think it's back to Stez.
Yeah, just to touch on that one more time, just to kind of put a face to the characteristic. You look at Zach Wilson's pro day to go to the NFL, right? He could throw the shit out of the ball. He had arguably, looking at his pro day, very impressive, right? Like Rodgers-esque, the way he was out there slinging the ball. But then you put him on the field and look what happens, right?
Yeah, and I think that goes into a lot of the traits that we're talking about. You know, there's just some things that are lacking there. You could say system fit or coaching, which we've seen, you know, change of that for some guys has benefited them. But I think with him, you know, shorts and a t-shirt looks a lot different than what you're seeing on the field.
Yeah,
100%.
You want me to
Stevie,
hit you
what do
with
you
a
got for your
trait real
second
quick?
round pick here?
So
Let's
I'm
go.
gonna go again with like the mental aspect. I know I talked about leadership before, but I'm gonna talk about being able to be a coach on the field. And that you can, again, many different avenues with this, but you look at being able to identify coverages, change line protections, simply, hey, your receiver doesn't know what route he's running. You got to know what every single person on the field's doing at all times, no matter what the situation is. And some of the best quarterbacks that I've been around are the guys that are basically another coach, except you're on the field. Whether that's, and there's a lot of different ways to get to that point. You got to know the playbook. You got to have a good relationship with your coaches, have trust, and all that good stuff. But there's so many different things. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I would agree. I mean, I think that you're talking about processing information and being a problem solver after mastery of your own playbook and mastering defensive schemes and structures and what you're going up against and really what you're looking for, right? It can be kind of stressful when you go out there and you don't know what you're looking for, right? But when you can isolate things like, right, is this a backside safety read, right? Is it a too high shell? And that makes the decision making process post snap a lot easier. And right, we've been talking a lot about these physical traits, right? How's this guy look in t-shirt and shorts throwing the football? Right, you can throw the crap out of it and look really good, but right when it go turn the lights on, right? Where are eyes, right? If they roll backside, what am I doing on front side, right? If I get this look, am I cannon? Am I flipping the play? So I think that's the most important piece, right? Because throwing the football, right, is the non-negotiable, right? We've all got to be able to throw the football to a certain extent. That's what gets you in the room, right? But the guy that's able to get out there on the play and have success is the guy that's making the right decision 90 to 95% of the time.
Yeah, and there's a lot
Yeah,
that
and if you can do
goes
that
into that.
Yeah, if you can do that at the high school level, like if you can get to the point where your coach trusts you to set the protection, to, you know, audible at the line of scrimmage, to change the play based on what the defense is giving you, like if that's the level of processing that you're at that level, like you're going to go into college so much more prepared to get on the field as opposed to a guy that is looking to the sideline every play and their coach is telling him where to throw the ball, you know? So I think it all ties into helping you be a more recruitable athlete and also just a better opportunity for success once you get to that next level. Because once you do, depending on the offensive scheme, they're going to ask a lot more out of you.
I think you can kind of tell too.
Such a massive advantage.
You can
especially
kind
at
of
the high school level. Sorry, Stevie. I'll just pop in quick. At the high school level, like what Mike was saying, if you can adjust and you can read coverages and you can dumb this down to like, okay, if then else or X does this, you know, then you got to go Y, Z. You're going to have like serious success. And after coaching at both college and high school, even at the D3 level that I coached at, it was like clear to see if you know what you're doing, like you're going to have a lot of success. And we'll touch on that in a second. But man, like the amount that high school coaches simplify what they do because there's no trust in the quarterback to be able to accomplish some of these things that we're talking about really limits what you're able to do as an offense. And quarterbacks who are like, well, my coach doesn't, you know, we don't throw the ball 30 times a game, so I'm never going to get recruited. You have to give them a reason to want to do that, right? You have to give them, they have to have that belief and that trust in you that, man, if I give this guy the keys, man, he'll be fine driving. Because if you can do that and you can open it up for yourself, your coach is going to believe in you, but it's going to benefit everybody, right? And it's just a massive, massive advantage, especially at that level.
Yeah, I think Dylan Gallo comes to mind for me. Just thinking about, because I worked obviously we all know Dylan really well, but like I used to do Zoom meetings with him in high school, and his coach put so much on his plate because he was so prepared. You know, like they would sit together each week. They would go over the offensive game plan together. He would be involved heavily in the scouting report. He would have, you know, opportunity each play pre-snap to change the play. A lot of times there was a run play and a pass play called, and based on what he's seeing out there, he would make the change. And he's one that if you look at him, you know, he's not going to wow you physically, but what he has up here and what he was able to do. I mean, he threw for over 3,000 yards this year. I think he led the state in passing, had a phenomenal career, 3-year starter, and then went on to WPI and is playing as a freshman, all because of what he has up here. You know, the emotion, obviously he can throw the football and he's gotten a lot better. And Stevie, I mean, you can talk to it, right? You were there, I think, for his first training session. And obviously physically he's grown so much and he can spin it. But what separates him is the mental and the emotional.
Yeah, and if you look at him, and what does he do? He plays and he coaches. You know that, and
Yeah.
it's a testament to the type of player he is. But Dylan's the man. I mean, like you said, seeing him from the beginning till now, it's like I can't say I didn't expect it though. He's one of the most coachable guys I've ever been around in my entire life. So that's a testament to Dylan.
Yeah. One more quick thing about Dylan I think is really cool that kids can learn from is like, it stood out to me early on is every time that I would give a player feedback, whether it was at the end of a session when kids are in line waiting to check out or during a session, he would always like kind of scoot over and lean in and try to hear exactly what I was saying and like learn from that. And I just thought that was really cool. And I've seen that with a few other like really elite guys that we've worked with, but Dylan did that from day one. So he was really able to end up being a coach on the field early on in his career. And then that's why he's the first ever like high school kid that we've truly brought on to help coach. And he's been like he was in high school coaching kids that are at the Power 4 level, and they respect him because he knew what he was saying and talking about because, you know, that's how he lives it. That's his lifestyle. So pretty cool story.
I think people too, obviously our listeners, we're throwing a bunch of characteristics and traits at him that is super important for a quarterback to have. But I think we could do a better job too of kind of explaining like how you can get better, how you can ascertain these characteristics and then take them to the next level. Dylan, great example, exactly what you just said, like coach on the field. Everybody thinks we're talking about, you know, September when it's Friday night and the lights are on and we're out there playing, but you can work on these things in the off season at a training session. Know the drills, pay attention, take mental reps. When you're at the back of the line, don't be afraid to coach guys up. If you see something, say something. I mean, not everyone's going to listen to you, but it's a good way to work on it. And just being always ready to go and working on these things is so important. It doesn't have to be a Friday night thing. All these traits can be something you guys work on all the time.
I know we're really pumping Dill's tires here. The arc of Dylan, though, like I remember the one of the first times that I trained solo, I had Dylan in the group probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I remember Mike texted me like, "You're just gonna love this kid," right? And the arc of Dylan from being like that kid that was like, you know, just leaning in and getting that feedback. He still does that stuff, but he's gone from that. I'm gonna be a sponge right now, and I'm gonna get all this information. Right? I'm going to get better. I'm going to work on my leadership ability. I'm going to become more vocal, right? He becomes more vocal. He understands what he's doing. He becomes a coach, right? Even when you train Dylan now, I'll be working with Dylan and he'll be like, "Hey, why don't we add this in?" He'll be throwing and he's like, "Hey, how about we add this, you know, extension to this drill?" I'm letting Dylan run with it because he's in the weeds, right? He's in the weeds working it. But to see him go from like kind of being there, but making sure he's getting all the information, to going from watching the guys at the top of the group to becoming the guy at the top of the group has just been super fun to watch. Jimbo, to you, last pick of the draft here.
All right. Well, we hit on a lot of stuff. There's a lot of crossover here, a lot of tie-in. But I'm gonna go with mental toughness. So, right on the emotional side, and I really like this quote. You got to live your life like you're the guy in the movie, right? The main character that's kind of climbing his way up the ranks, right? Because there's always going to be odds are always going to be stacked against you, no matter how talented you are, whatever situation you are. You're going to find yourself in a situation where you're going to need to have a lot of self-belief, right? Whether the circumstances, right, like we're talking about earlier with Tom Brady, down 28-3 in a game, right? He's inspirational, right? Telling his teammates, right, they're right there in it, right? There might be times where maybe you're not getting as many reps as you'd like, right? Like you're getting 1 or 2 reps during the week in practice, right? And you've got to grind your way to go out there and get the 3s reps or the 2s reps or the 4 or 5 reps, whatever it is. I kind of just think that mental toughness is a huge component, no matter what we're talking about of quarterback play, right? Where even when things aren't going our way, right, we've got to have, again, that confidence, that self-belief, so that everyone around you, not only yourself, can believe in it.
You can always rely on Jimmy for a good quote. Be the stream. What are some of your other ones? You get some
The quote guy.
I don't remember, man.
What is it? Quick but not in a hurry or something like that.
Yeah, quick game, baby.
Quick but not in a hurry. I mean, he's the quote guy, but that's great. I think that you kind of tied it all in together there at the end, which was good. But like, mental toughness is undisputedly one of the most important things that we can have, because like you said, it's going to hit the fan, and we're going to have to adjust and adapt, and you're just going to have to carry on, right? It's that 1 foot in front of the other mentality, and the movie guy quote that you just hit us with. But it's like, a lot of people aren't going to believe that you can achieve the things that you say you want to, but you have to. If you don't, nobody else will, right? But yeah, mental toughness on its own right is absolutely up there for me, and I think everybody here.
Yeah, we talk about it in training all the time. Like, don't let one bad rep bleed into the next in a training setting. And I tell guys all the time, like, that was something that I worked on, I think, going into my senior year in high school, is practice that in a training setting. Practice your body language. Don't let a negative result of something bleed into the next rep. And I know, Stevie, that's something we worked on with you too, and like saw huge growth in that area. So super important. And then one more thing, and then Stevie, I want to get your take on that. But Al, you made me think of like another quote by a Navy SEAL. I remember reading a book once, and he talks about like doing rock climbing and how they had to scale this mountain, and he was like really afraid of heights, so he didn't want to look down. So he just tried to stay in his 3-foot world, like what is right in front of him, just worrying about what is the next step to ultimately get to the top, but just be where your feet are, right? So just focusing and staying in the moment. I think it's really hard in the world we live in, with kids worrying about getting recruited and seeing other kids posting offers on social media, and kids posting all their training clips all the time, and the FOMO that kids are getting from other kids getting invites to camps and things like that. But if you can just stay in your 3-foot world and be mentally tough and just put your head down and focus on what's right in front of you and be process driven, then most of the time, things work out for you.